back to Grow Your Impact, Income, and Influence, the #1 show helping entrepreneurs reach millions of people, millions of dollars in the bank. That's what we're going to be talking about today. If you are somebody who ever gets to the end of the month and you wish there was a little bit more month so that you could generate some revenue to make payroll, maybe you've been in business for a little while and you're like, why don't I have some savings? Maybe your books are a mess. Maybe you haven't filed taxes in a little while. We're going to make all of that easy. Well, okay, maybe I'm being a little facetious. We don't have an easy button, but we are going to talk about the way to unpack this. Having seen inside of hundreds of businesses myself, I can tell you a lot of them, they fly by the seat of their pants. They're spending on credit cards, and all of that is a mindset. We're going to unpack how you actually can set your business up to run a little bit more efficiency. Imagine what you would do if you didn't have that burden on your shoulders or all of that junk running in the back of your subconscious. My guest today, Jen Fizer. Jen, how are you doing?
I am great. Thank you for having me on.
Dude, I am excited. This is something like I've just seen so many business owners get to the end of 20 years in business and they're like, I've got 50 grand in the bank. My house still has a mortgage. I've generated millions of dollars. I don't know what I'm doing. You help businesses with this as a CFO that's fractional. So let's just jump in. How did you get here? Because this is not, most people would not say this is my skill set.
Yes. And that's a loaded question. How did I get here? If we go way back, it kind of started I graduated from college in December of 2007 and then headed in, straight into recession. Great time to graduate. Job opportunities were not great. So I want to say probably the first 7 or 8 years of my career were not they were just in these, what I would call random jobs now, but not going towards any sort of career path. I was in retail management, and then I was an arborist. So I was not related to CFO work at all. Then I got into what?
Did you grow a money tree? Arborist is a person who grows things, right?
Yes. And I wish that I had started growing a money tree at that point, but no, unfortunately not. And then I got kind of into recruiting and staffing and things like that. And so that seems like the total opposite. All of those things are the total opposite of what I do now. But then while I was doing all of that, I'm like, this is not fun. This is not the direction that I want my life to go in. So I kind of regrouped. It's like, let's go back to numbers. I love numbers. I love finance. Let's recorrect here, and go on a path that both pays money and doesn't have me in ditches all day. So that was kind of my thought process there. So anyway, I started into finance. I worked for a farm. Started just as I don't know what you would call it, the finance person there, and then worked myself into the CFO role. And from there, I got a lot of experience in a lot of different things. And by that, I mean helping businesses that have no money operate. So, at the time, it was very stressful, and we went through bankruptcy. We went through, years of farming is all weather related. So it was some years would be really good. Other years are really bad. And how do you know that? You can't predict that in April when you're trying to figure out what to plant. So what might come up in October. So it's just kind of these recurring, how do we make it through this year? And then in 2019, October of 2019, I bought my own business. I bought a coffee shop. And that was where all of these things that I had been doing in my career kind of came together. And I was like, oh, now I know why I was really good at interviewing and sales and doing all of those things that seemed to have not made sense prior, all kind of came together. So I owned a coffee shop for, 5 years. I sold it last July, and there's all these overlapping things, but while I did that, I also worked for another CFO firm, but I was on the internal team. So I watched them grow from, I think we started at 3 million when I started there, and they ended up selling to private equity at around 10 million. So I got to be part of that. And then into fractional CFO. So long story to tell you how I got here, but well-rounded. That's how I like to describe myself as far as my CFO work goes.
Well, I want to unpack like what an actual CFO does, like
Mm-hmm.
especially as a fractional, because I know people listening to this, so don't discount this. If your business is $50 to $150,000, planning correctly will take so much weight off of your shoulders. And if your business is making millions, but you constantly seem to be scrambling or you don't know where the dollars are, you might be able to work a lot less and make more money. So what does a CFO actually do?
Okay, great question, because that's basically the first question that I always get when I tell people what I do and why I added bookkeeping to the title, because that at least clues people in that it's, numbers generally. So when I look at it, the way that I describe it, so like your CPA that files your taxes, your bookkeeper, they are really only looking at what's already happened, right? They're like telling you like, okay, you made X amount this year, you owe this much in taxes. It's all already happened. There's not really anything that you can do about it at this point. Same with bookkeeping. It's just recording what's already happened. Either one of them can sometimes kind of do that progressive, like forward thinking, but a lot of times not. And so that's where the CFO comes into place. What do I do when I don't have enough to make payroll this week? Like a CFO helps you both forecast that so you don't run into that problem, but helps you come up like, okay, this week we need to sell $50,000 in order to be able to cover all of our expenses. So very forward thinking, budgeting, forecasting, financing, things like that. So it kind of falls under all of the other things aside from what your bookkeeper and CPA might do for you.
So I can hear some of the voices out there of listeners being like, but I don't make enough money, or I don't have any money. Like I have so little money. Would it even make sense to hire this person? I can look at my bills and I can say, okay, I've got, I don't know, we'll say $5,000 in bills coming out this week, and I've got 4,500. I need to sell $500. Why do I need a CFO? What do you like? How do you actually provide the value? Because I know that you do. I've seen it in businesses. I've done my own financial planning. I've had help from people similar to yourself. But what do you actually do that brings the value to the table?
I always tell people, especially people that are just like, I don't know if I can afford this. My job is actually to make sure that I can pay for myself from your books, right? Like it's not you I don't want to be an extra expense. If I am not serving you value in either cutting your expenses in some place that you may not have seen or helping you generate more revenue. And that could be from like me identifying let's try this new product, or have you thought about doing this because it's way more profitable? Like you're focusing too much of your time on things that aren't actually profitable for you. There's all kinds of ways that I can help businesses figure out how to pay for myself, but that is like job number one.
I like that. I like that a lot. We were kind of talking beforehand, and I want to ask the question, like you've seen inside behind the curtains of hundreds of businesses. You've run some yourself. What do you see successful businesses doing? Because I think so many people, they're just like, well, it's a sales problem. I need more leads, then I'll make more sales, then I'll have more money. And they do that and they're like, oh, my life sucks. Like now I've got more deliverables, or I made more money, but I don't have any. What's going on? What do you see like successful businesses versus businesses that are struggling to hit payroll over and over and over? What are some of the things that stand out? And we can talk on both sides, like things that businesses don't see, things that businesses are doing. What comes to mind for you?
I was actually thinking about this morning because I had a client recently that had reached out. They're a newer client wanting to sign on. And when I looked at this was one of those like dream client situations because they're like, I don't know if I can afford this. But I look at their account, I'm like, all of their bookkeeping is up to date. All of their, like, they have money in the bank. They don't have a ton of loans. And I'm like, what do you mean you can like you're doing, you actually don't need my help. Like you guys are doing awesome yourselves. But what I see in that situation a lot of times is, if it's a single person or a partnership, whether it's a married couple or, two guys that start a plumbing company together, whatever it is, they scale slowly until they are at the point where it makes sense to bring on new people, right? So they might be the guy in the truck for a long time and they're building up savings. They are not spending every dime that comes in, reinvesting into the business. We mentioned that before when we were talking
We'll
before.
come back to that.
Yeah. It's building up those cash reserves before you start making moves. And that's cash is king, cash flow is king. That's the number one thing that I always I've mentioned multiple number one things that I do now, but it's like, okay, I figure out a way to pay for myself, but also we're going to focus on getting you some cash in the bank. So not everything is so tight. So when they're coming in, they already have some sort of buffer, either in their checking account or a savings account of some sort. Like, it's that focus on stability first rather than growth. And then the growth can explode. When you have cash in the bank, you can make moves that other people can't. But until then, you're just like, you're constantly in that like hand to mouth phase.
Okay, so let's unpack. We'll come back to reinvesting in the business, but let's just unpack that a little bit, because what you hear is, well, hire the things that you either don't like doing or beneath your pay grade. Hire those out as fast as you can. Find the who, not how. So you see these people that have a business with too many employees. How do you kind of see that? The rule that I have always heard is $1 million per employee. So if you're making $10 million a year, 10 employees. But do you have a framework for that? How do you think about that?
Honestly, it depends on the industry, and like how much one person can actually generate. It might be an attorney may be very different than a plumber. So it definitely depends on the type of industry that you're in. And that's important too, because again, an attorney is going to have way less expenses, like in the early stages, we'll call it. They don't need a van, and they don't need tools and things like that. They may need some software, maybe an office, and then they can hang a shingle. So there's some different perspectives that you need to look at as you're starting your business. But to kind of go back to your original thought, there is that as you are building your business, and I hear it all the time too, like, get yourself a virtual assistant and hire the bookkeeper, and don't do any of the things that you don't like doing in your business. And yeah, like I get it, because those aren't always the best use of your time. But I kind of feel like you need to pressure test your business in some ways too. You need to make sure your business is actually a need and something that people want in the marketplace before you start adding all of these pressures of payroll. Because when you add payroll, that's like, you're not only responsible for yourself anymore, you're responsible for other families too. So having kind of those tests to make sure that you can actually get through these hard times. And like, maybe income is great right now, you want to hire everybody, but have you ever been through a downturn? Do you know how to lean out your business if you need to? So there's a million different paths you could take with this conversation, but
yeah,
it's definitely an important conversation to have, and don't rush to hire is kind of my thought.
So now we're gonna go into the reinvesting in the business, because it's similar but different, right? Because you're not just hiring personnel. Now it can be spending money on any wide range of things that, quote, reinvest in the business. And you hear there are people all over YouTube that say, the best thing you should do with your cash is reinvest it in the business. And well, I think that can be helpful if you're doing the right thing. So many people take liberty with this. What are some of the silliest things that you've seen people reinvest in their business, like under the guise of I'm reinvesting? And you're like, what? Like, you don't have money for payroll, but yet you spent money on popcorn or...
I'll tell you one that I did, because, I have made lots of mistakes and I will tell you all about them. But so I own the coffee shop, and I had some extra money, and I was like, what? I love t-shirts. I was like, let's start making our own t-shirts. So I bought like the heat press and the sublimation printer, and I went all out, right? I probably spent, I don't know, $1,500 or more, which, like, I'm not talking about a huge amount of money, but still it was like Did I ever make a single t-shirt to sell? No,
Do you
I
still have
didn't.
it sitting in the garage?
I mean, I made some, yeah, I know, I keep thinking, I'm like, I need to put that on Marketplace because they're just sitting out there. I mean, I made some like shirts for my employees. So, I mean, it didn't go completely unused, but I was like, oh, we're going to like start selling all of these things. It'll be so much fun. I am not creative. And why I thought that I was suddenly going to be able to slap together all these like really cool t-shirt designs, I don't know. But I thought it would be cool. And I tried it. And I was like, oh, it'd be this whole new revenue stream that we'll have at the coffee shop. And no, it did not work out.
Well, I think that's something entrepreneurs have shiny object syndrome. We love ideas and we love thinking about ideas. How do you pressure test that? What are some questions that you take your clients through to help them see, like, should I buy this or should I not? Maybe I have cash. Let's say I have 10 grand sitting in the bank. Cash is king. Why should I spend it on something? But it's so easy to say, I need a truck, a t-shirt press, this or that, whatever, right? How do you pressure test what you should and should not spend money on in a business?
That's a great question because if like I thought about that prior to it, right? I was like, I was like doing all these formulas. I'm like, okay, if I sold X amount of shirts per week, how much revenue would that bring in? And how much are my costs on all of that? Like I was like, oh, this will be profitable. No problem. I had people, I was like, oh, they can, press some shirts while they're, I don't know, it's slow in the, late afternoon or whatever. So in my head, I was like, I have the formula, right? I have all of the things that I need. Well, in practicality though, that was not, I was thinking of like the ideal situation. I was like, okay, I will have, first of all, why did I not have any ideas prior about what t-shirts I wanted to make, right? Like it was, I didn't come up with designs and then buy all of this stuff. I was like, no, it'll come to me, sure. So it was kind of like have more preparation, right? Like if you want to get into the t-shirt business, great. Have you been designing t-shirts for any amount of time? Maybe try an Etsy shop first where you're doing like print on demand or whatever. Like let's test some things that way. But then also, I was also looking at this like, oh yeah, I will actually love to do this. And it's actually kind of boring. Like the whole process of pressing a shirt, like printing it out, pressing it, like it's time consuming and boring. It is actually not fun at all. So I didn't have the time to actually add a whole new line of products to our offerings. And I see that in other businesses too, right? Like if you own, I don't know why I keep using plumbing as an example, but we'll just go with it. So let's say that you're a plumber and you're like, you know what really makes money is the HVAC. Let's add that as an arm to our business. Well, do you know how to do that? Do you have the funds to start a whole new like segment of your business and go out and buy the van and all the tools, hire a tech, because that's probably what it's going to take? Or should you use that money to focus on what you're already really good at? So maybe you add a tool of something that's being requested, not something that you're like, oh, it would be really cool to buy this piece of equipment and you're going to use it once a year. But if, you're constantly getting calls for, I don't even know, like one of those cameras that goes through the lines, right? And if that would actually be helpful for you, those are all kinds of things that think about, but you need to like really think about it, right? Not like make sure that it's actually worth your time. And I will also say buying an actual asset versus buying something that's like a software or something that's not sellable should you decide to not move forward, or that it's just kind of like a subscription to something and you're wasting your time if you don't use it. I'd much rather you buy a truck that we can turn around and sell if we need to.
Well, do you have these conversations with your clients?
Yes, all the time.
Because I'm gonna ask me how I know that the t-shirt business sucks making t-shirts. I've bought a silk screen press, not once, but twice, because the first time I bought it, made a few shirts, didn't like it, sold it. And then like 5 years later, I was like, no, I think it would be a good idea. Yeah. And I did the whole thing again.
We must be cut from the same cloth here, because I'm like, I don't know why.
I am super creative. I actually have an art degree and I get bored which is where I'm going with this. I think entrepreneurs, we get the shiny object. We're like looking and we're like, oh, that seems like that would be fun. And to your point, reinvesting in the thing that we do, where do you spend the time that makes you the most money is honestly probably pretty boring to us because we've mastered it, right? That's why people pay us the money for it. And we could do more with that. We could go deeper, we could charge more, we could find higher ticket clients, we could find more clients or less clients, depending what you're like, more clients, less money, new offering in our silo, like all of those questions. That's what a really good business consultant would ask. Like, how do you take this business that you're doing really well in and go further with it? And does the thing that you want to buy fit in there? Now, I could see if you have good foot traffic at the coffee shop, hey, if we sold t-shirts and we sold 10 a week, that's $250, that's $1,000 a month. But we need to put a person in place to make the shirts. We have to blah, 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 like all the stuff, right? So I think having that conversation as a mirror, if you're an entrepreneur and you're listening, you know you have silly ideas. Mm-hmm. You know, if you went and looked at what you've spent money on, you've probably spent money on silly ideas. Having somebody that restrains you a little bit, nobody wants to hear that. We're entrepreneurs because we like freedom. Do you like freedom? Do you want anyone telling you like, no, maybe you shouldn't buy the t-shirt machine? Did you have somebody tell you not to buy it?
No, because everyone will, I'm their boss, right? Like, of course they're going to tell me we should do it.
This is another reason why fractionals, in my opinion, are worth their weight in gold, because they are not, if you are surrounded by a couple employees that tell you yes all the time, you are not getting honest feedback and you live in an echo chamber. Having somebody like Jen to say, hey, maybe you shouldn't buy the XYZ thing or the subscription. So asset versus non-asset and subscriptions, we're going to get into those two because I think this is relevant. What is an asset versus a liability, and how can you talk to us about that? Because I think people say, I'm going to reinvest into my business. Buying a t-shirt machine, that's an asset. Buying this course over here on how to do this thing that I don't know how to do, but is a pain point in my business, sales, marketing, whatever it is, speaking, all that stuff. I teach people to speak on stage. The number of people that have told me they've spent more than 10 grand on courses to build a TED Talk. And I'm like, let's just do it. But they want to buy the course. So what is an asset versus a liability? How can you lay that out for me?
I kind of look at it in the easy way to say it is, I'm like, okay, if you needed cash tomorrow, can you sell that item to make your payroll? Now, that whether you can actually sell it in one day or not is totally irrelevant. But it's like, is somebody else willing to pay for it after you have owned it? Now, there's probably a much more technical definition as far as, dictionary, but that is like, even some things that are technically assets, I'm like, well, I mean, I don't know, your office equipment could technically be an asset, but is it really, right? Like, if you're going to go spend $1,000 on it, can you get anywhere close to that for it? So that's kind of where I'm.
Like think about, okay, so some of the arguments that I could see coming up for this. I'm going to buy this course because it is going to equal sales in my business. Therefore, it's an asset and I have to learn the thing, right? I have to be better at discovery calls and taking an income, or I have to be better at hiring, or I have to be better at HR. So I'm going to go spend money over here. Now, those things you can't sell. I can't sell those in a day, a week, or a month.
Absolutely.
But are they assets?
And that's kind of the, like, is the person that's buying it actually going to use it? Because like you just mentioned, right? I have bought courses that I like pay for them and never even log in. So again, I make all the mistakes, right? So if you are the kind of person that is going to buy a course, you're going to watch every video, and then you're actually going to put those skills into place in your business, absolutely do it. But that's where knowing yourself and your history and how well you are at carrying through with those things really comes into play. I know some people that are, if they buy something, they are absolutely going to watch every video of it and they're going to follow that to a T, and they are amazing. And they will like skyrocket really fast because they're following somebody else's advice. Generally, I would rather pay somebody that's going to personally coach you and make sure that you're following through with it than to pay for the course. Just kind of where I fall in the
I think most
education.
Probably 95% of people will benefit much better from having a coach take them through the same content. They see the price differential of it's $1,000 or $2,000 for the course, and it's $10,000 to hire a coach for 6 months. But if you never open the course, you're really just burning $1,000 versus getting the outcome of hiring the coach. It asks, is it worth it? Another question that came up, office furniture or great stuff, right? Versus good enough to use. This is something that I have definitely been guilty of this. Like, I have a $2,000 office chair. I'm like, do I need a Herman Miller, blah, 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 like fancy designed? And then like I tried to sell it and, I got $400 for it. So it's like, but how do you help people make better decisions? I think we've come back to this a couple different ways.
That is, you have to know the whole picture in a lot of senses, right? Like, it's on paper, should I buy a $2,000 office chair? How much money do you have in the bank? Is it all $2,000 that you have, or do you have $250,000 in the bank and you're not even going to notice it? There's like gray areas for all of these decisions, right? And that's where I come in to help people kind of figure out whether it's worth it or not. I had a client the other day that they wanted to buy a trailer, and he was like, well, we could get a loan for it. He'd always gotten loans for equipment, so it seemed like the natural thing to do. And I'm like, or you can just sell another job this week and we can pay for it in cash. And he was like, what? We can do that? I'm like, of course you can do that. But it was just like the wiring in his brain had never told him like, oh, just go sell another job and you have that. Going back, he also had been cash flow strapped for years. And so he needed goals. He needed somebody to tell him, you need to sell X amount this week in order to cover these expenses. And so it's he's very goal driven. So if I give him a number, he's going to like double it, which is cool from my perspective. But it's he's buying an asset, he's buying it in a different way. And it was like a $13,000 trailer. What might have 6 months ago absolutely wrecked his cash flow doesn't matter anymore, right? Like, let's go buy it and then not pay interest on it for the next 5 years. And it's not even a blip in his cash flow at this point.
That's pretty awesome. I mean, that right there is the story that I think everybody wants to get to. And for me, like what I see people struggle with is they're wearing so many different hats, right? They're in charge of sales, they're in charge of marketing, they're in charge of running their whole team. And they think that they should be able to manage cash flow. I can look at the bank, I can decide what to buy, I can decide what not to buy. But what you really do is help them unpack that and have clear thoughts around it, which is in itself kind of priceless. Because if you get people from struggling with cash flow to 6 months later, having all the cash flow to buy whatever they want because you've put goals and structure and formation in place and pulled it out of their head, off of their shoulders to give them the freedom, they've actually made a much better business for themselves.
Absolutely. And to go along with that too, because there is some like psychology to this too, right? Like if you have been like struggling for years and now all of a sudden you have a bunch of money in the bank, people are either one of two ways. People are either like, oh my gosh, I don't want to touch it now that there's so much money in there. Like they're afraid to spend any dollar after that, which sometimes I need to urge them into like, okay, maybe now it's time to make this higher. Like, it's okay, we can do this. Or they're like, oh my gosh, there's so much money. Let's go buy everything I've ever wanted. Neither one are really the great, but that's kind of where I want I don't hide things from my clients, right? It is their money, it is their, but I like to work with percentages and like overarching themes, right? Like if they're not the one managing their day to day and they're not logging into their bank account every morning to see how much is in there and if they can write this check, if I've taken that off of their plate, it kind of goes away. Like they don't have that like, oh, there's 10 grand. Let's go shopping. Like, what do we need today? So like there's that psychology piece to it too, right? Like where I need to manage people's spending habits in a way and retrain them.
Well, there's something that I've seen that I think is actually kind of toxic. And it's this idea of I can spend any amount I want. I've got an Amex, I've got a platinum Amex, and I can go buy whatever I want. And if it's for the business, I'll figure out how to make more money. So I'm going to go, I've seen this, one of my friends actually does this like all the time. It drives me nuts. We go out to eat, he buys whatever he wants, it goes on the platinum. He's running through the mall, like we were running through an airport together, and he stopped and like, I don't care what you spend on clothing. Like I have some really expensive clothes that I wear on stage. I get it. But like on a whim spends $500 at like a men's dress store in the airport because he saw stuff and he's like, oh, it's a business expense. I'll make more. I'll go figure out some more sales. But then we get towards pressure time and he's like, how did my Amex bill get to be 30 grand this month? And it's like, because you never say no to yourself. The toxic thought pattern is, well, it's for the business, I'll spend it and I'll figure out how to make more. That's a growth mentality versus a lack mentality of I have to live within a budget. How do you help people come around that? Because I think it doesn't matter whether you make 100 grand a year or 10 million a year. If you don't control and have some thought process, you're never going to have anything to show for it. How do you help people step into that new reality?
Yes. So at first I want to say I love people with growth mentalities because they're a lot easier to direct in some ways because I'll just go sell more. Cool. Like that's great. That is what you want because I'm all on board. And like, let's be strategic about it though. Like go out and sell. If selling is your thing, you sell as much as you possibly can. I'm not going to rein you in, but I am going to help and make sure that all of your back end is in place so that everything you sell is actually in this way. I'm like crossing into like COO categories here too, but that's kind of like, sometimes those go hand in hand, right? Like, okay, you're selling all of this. We actually might need to hire another tech to make sure that we can keep up with the sales that you're doing. So I'd much rather deal with that and kind of rein in, be like, hey, this time let's maybe think about, all right, you're going to sell this, whatever. We're not going to be able to provide that service for 10 weeks because that's how far out we're booked, right? Like think of it in that way. Like make sure, as long as you're upfront with the customer, if they still want to follow through with everything, awesome. But like, do we need to maybe figure out, do we need to grow some more? Are you actually being profitable when you're selling out this far?
Yeah.
Let's not make deals just to make deals kind of thing. Like, let's evaluate what you're selling. I run into that too, where people are like, they get so used to just needing cash flow in. They're like, well, I don't care how profitable it is. It's just money. I need money. And I'm like, well, that works for a while. But like, if you are in a true cash crunch, like, please go out and sell. Yes, absolutely. Let's get the money coming in because then we can figure it out next week, kind of like get there. But that only works for so long. Please don't be running your business into the ground, doing, selling things at a loss because you just want the cash coming in. Eventually you're going to have to pay the piper essentially. So
yeah.
There's, all of these conversations and all of these things that are going through my mind as they are happening. I've learned to just very quickly try to figure out what kind of personality type I am working with as the owner. Figure out do I need to be creating distractions for them? Like, oh, we're going to do this. If they're big into sales, like, okay, here's your target for the week, go do it. Or are they really into, like, if they're a more hesitant growth person, I might be pushing them a little bit. Like, well, have you thought about doubling this year? Like, how much more could you be doing if you're pushing yourself and like pushing those goals rather than the steady growth? So all over the place with personality types, but I just try to learn it and figure out how to motivate or like how to interact with the owner.
Awesome. If you guys have been listening to this and you're interested in booking a call with Jen, we're putting her link in the show notes. You can click down there. Jen, how do people work with you? That's, I think, how I want to wrap this up. Like, is it like 1 month you come in, you look at stuff? Is it a 6-month engagement? Like, how are you actually, what does a fractional CFO show up in the business? How do you work with people?
Okay, great question. So that first month, this is always something too that I ask people, because I'm like, that first month is actually going to be a lot of labor on your part, right? So you need to be committed because I can't actually do my job if you're not going to make sure you can get me all the logins, make sure that we have the conversation about your full business and I have a full understanding of everything that's happening and going on, and don't hide. I'm actually secretly getting sued over here and I just don't want to share that with you yet, because I don't know if we're like burying it all out on the table, so that I have the best picture of how I can help and how we need to handle things moving forward. So there's just a lot of prep in that first month. I do 4-month minimums, because that first month, like I said, it's just kind of diving in, getting as much information as we can, generally cleaning up the books, unless you've been doing an amazing job of them yourself, and getting the identity of the business kind of created. And then month 2, 3, 4, that's where we're really starting to build the plan and carry it out. So by month 4, you are generally seeing progress. Now, a lot of clients are just, and like, I'm not saying they're endless, but like I'm a fractional CFO. You don't generally just suddenly lose the need for a CFO unless something's happening and the business is selling, or, partnerships breaking up or something like that. So those are kind of circumstances, but it's more of a commitment to like, I am here to help your business succeed and I will be there for the long haul. Now, if you decide that you don't need me, cool. I'm not going to hold it against you, but I'm going to do as much for you in the time that I have as I can.
Awesome. Well, it's been a fun conversation. I think it is. I mean, it's what I started the show with. I think there are so many businesses out there that make great money and they get to the end, or they get pretty far in, 10, 15, 20 years in. They're like, I have nothing to show for it. I've generated millions in revenue and I have so little to show for it. And it's like, if you just would have thought about it slightly differently in the beginning, you don't have to sacrifice anything. You actually, when you take that weight off your shoulders, you will grow faster. You will have more money to put back into the business, and you'll have more money to save, because it multiplies differently when you're not just haphazard with it. But I think so many people are like, they have guilt and shame, or they just have too many things going on to really pay attention. And it's cool to see how you help people really unpack it. So Jen, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. If you've been listening this far, do yourself a favor, click the link that is in the show notes, book a call with Jen, and we'll see you next time here on Grow Your Impact, Income, and Influence. Have an awesome day, guys.